It started with a signal, a faint blip on the radar screen at the small observatory in upstate New York, where I worked as a night shift technician. I had spent countless hours monitoring the skies, scanning the cosmos for anything unusual, but nothing could have prepared me for what I found that night. It was a quiet evening, the kind that had become routine after months of uneventful shifts. The other staff had already gone home, leaving me alone with the comforting hum of the equipment and the distant chirping of crickets outside. I was scrolling through endless lines of data when a sudden spike caught my attention, a burst of energy from a distant part of the sky, unlike anything I had seen before. At first, I thought it was a glitch. Equipment malfunctions were not uncommon, especially with our aging gear. But as I analyzed the signal further, I realized it was something different. The pattern was too regular, too precise to be random noise. It was as if someone, or something, was trying to communicate. I immediately recorded the signal and ran it through every filter and algorithm at my disposal. It was no natural phenomenon, that much was clear. The signal was repeating in a complex sequence, a series of numbers and tones that seemed almost deliberate. My heart raced as I stared at the screen. I knew what this could mean, but I also knew the implications of jumping to conclusions. Still, the thought crept into my mind. Could this be contact? I spent the next several hours working feverishly to decode the signal. It was incredibly complex, far beyond anything we had ever intercepted from deep space. The pattern seemed to hint at an advanced intelligence, something far beyond our understanding. I sent a message to my supervisor, Dr. Emily Rhodes, detailing my findings. She was one of the leading astrophysicists in the country and had always been open to the possibility of extraterrestrial life. If anyone could make sense of this, it would be her. But as the hours passed and I waited for a response, something strange began to happen. The signal grew stronger, more insistent, as if whatever was sending it knew I was listening. The regular pulses of energy became erratic, almost frantic, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. It wasn't long before I started seeing things out of the corner of my eye. Flickers of movement on the security monitors, shadows that shouldn't have been there. The hair on the back of my neck stood on end, and a cold sweat broke out on my skin. I couldn't explain it, but I felt an overwhelming sense of dread. When Dr. Rhodes finally responded, she was excited, almost giddy with the implications of what I had discovered. She instructed me to keep monitoring the signal and promised to come to the observatory first thing in the morning, but I wasn't sure I'd make it through the night. The signal continued to grow in intensity, pulsing through the equipment with a force that made the entire building tremble. The power surged, causing the lights to flicker and the monitors to flash ominously. I tried to stay focused, to keep recording the data, but the unease gnawing at my gut was impossible to ignore. It was around midnight when I heard it, an otherworldly hum that seemed to resonate through the very walls of the observatory. It wasn't coming from the equipment, it was something else, something that vibrated through the air and rattled my bones. The sound was low, almost imperceptible at first, but it grew louder and more distinct with each passing minute. I grabbed a flashlight and ventured into the main hall, my heart pounding in my chest. The hum was coming from outside, drawing me toward the large observation windows that overlooked the surrounding woods. As I approached, I could see a strange glow in the distance, a soft, pulsating light that bathed the trees in an eerie, unnatural hue. I hesitated for only a moment before I pushed open the door and stepped outside. The cool night air hit me like a wave, but it did nothing to calm the rising panic in my chest. The light was coming from the sky, a strange, shimmering beam that seemed to descend from the heavens and touch down in the forest just beyond the observatory. I stood there, frozen in place, as the light grew brighter, the hum louder, until the ground beneath me began to tremble. It was like nothing I had ever seen, beautiful and terrifying all at once. My mind raced with possibilities, but there was only one conclusion that made sense. They were here. The light intensified, and for a moment I had to shield my eyes from the blinding brilliance. When I looked again, I saw them, 3 figures standing at the edge of the forest, just beyond the reach of the light. They were tall, impossibly tall, with elongated limbs and smooth, featureless faces that seemed to shimmer and shift like liquid metal. Their bodies were slender, almost delicate, and they moved with a grace that was both mesmerizing and unsettling. There was an otherworldly quality to them, something that defied explanation, as if they were made of pure energy. I couldn't move, couldn't speak. I was rooted to the spot, overwhelmed by a mix of awe and terror. They stood there for what felt like an eternity, watching me with those blank, expressionless faces. And then, as if they had come to a decision, they began to move toward me. Panic surged through me, and I stumbled backward, my flashlight clattering to the ground. I turned and ran, my breath coming in ragged gasps as I sprinted back into the observatory. I slammed the door shut behind me and locked it, my hands shaking uncontrollably. But I knew it wouldn't keep them out. I backed away from the door, my mind racing with fear and confusion. I had to warn someone, had to let the world know what was happening. But as I reached for the phone, the lights flickered and went out, plunging the observatory into darkness. The hum grew louder, more insistent, and I could feel the vibrations in my chest, in my bones. I could sense them outside, just beyond the walls, their presence pressing down on me like a suffocating weight. And then, without warning, the door began to creak open. The door swung open slowly, almost deliberately, revealing the pitch-black night beyond. My heart raced as I pressed myself against the wall, my eyes straining to see in the darkness. The hum filled the air, resonating through the building, making it feel as though the very structure was trembling. And then they were there. One of the figures stepped forward, closer than before, and I felt a wave of intense pressure in my head, a sharp pain that made me cry out. It was as if something was being pulled from my mind, something I couldn't quite grasp. And then, in a voice that echoed in my thoughts, I heard it. "We have chosen." The pain intensified, and I felt myself slipping away, my consciousness fading into darkness. I tried to fight it, to hold on, but it was too strong, too overwhelming. The last thing I saw before the darkness claimed me was the figure's hand, reaching out toward me once more. And then, nothing. When I woke, I was lying on the cold, hard floor of the observatory. The lights were back on, flickering weakly, casting long shadows across the room. My head throbbed with a dull ache, and I felt disoriented, as if I had been asleep for days. But I wasn't alone. Dr. Rhodes was standing over me, her face a mix of concern and confusion. "Thank God you're awake," she said, helping me to my feet. "What happened here? I got your message, and when I arrived, the place was in chaos. The equipment is fried, and you were lying on the floor, unconscious." I struggled to find the words, my mind still reeling from the encounter. They were here," I managed to say, my voice barely a whisper. Dr. Rhodes frowned. "Who was here?" "Them," I said, my voice trembling. "The ones who sent the signal, they found me." She looked at me as if I had lost my mind, and in that moment, I wondered if I had. The memories of what had happened were fragmented, like pieces of a shattered mirror, but the fear was still there, gnawing at the edges of my sanity. I tried to explain, but the words wouldn't come. How could I describe what I had seen, what I had felt? How could I make her understand that something beyond our comprehension had made contact, and that they had chosen me for something? Dr. Rhodes led me to a chair and handed me a glass of water. "Take it easy," she said, her voice calm and soothing. "You've been through a lot. Just try to relax and tell me what you remember." I took a deep breath, trying to steady my nerves. I told her about the signal, about the figures in the forest, about the encounter in the observatory. But as I spoke, I could see the skepticism in her eyes, the doubt that crept into her expression. "It sounds like you had a vivid hallucination," she said gently. "The stress of the job, the isolation, it's not uncommon for people in our field to experience things like this." I shook my head. It wasn't a hallucination, it was real. They were real. She didn't argue, but I could tell she didn't believe me. And who could blame her? The whole thing sounded insane, like something out of a bad science fiction movie. But I knew what I had seen, what I had felt. When I woke, I was in the void again, floating in that endless darkness, the voices whispering in my mind. But this time, something was different. The whispers were clearer, the words more distinct. They were no longer out of reach. "We have chosen," the voices said, echoing in my mind. "You are the one." The pain in my head intensified, and I felt something shift inside me, something breaking free. It was as if a floodgate had been opened, and a torrent of images, memories, and thoughts poured into my mind. I saw worlds beyond imagining, alien landscapes bathed in strange, unearthly light. I saw beings of pure energy, their forms shifting and changing like liquid. I saw ancient civilizations, long since vanished, their ruins scattered across the cosmos. And I saw them, the ones who had come to me. I saw their world, their technology, their purpose. They were travelers, explorers of the universe, seeking knowledge and understanding. But they were also something more, something ancient and powerful, with motives that went beyond human comprehension. And I was their chosen one. The knowledge flooded my mind, overwhelming me, drowning me in a sea of information. I could feel them inside me, their thoughts mingling with mine, their presence merging with my consciousness. And then, as quickly as it had begun, it was over. I was back in my apartment, lying in bed, the pain in my head gone, replaced by a strange, unsettling calm. The figures were gone, and the room was empty, but I knew they were still with me, inside me, a part of me. I had been chosen, and I understood what that meant. I knew what I had to do. The knowledge they had given me was too much for one person to bear, too dangerous to keep hidden. I had to share it, to let the world know what was coming. I returned to the observatory, breaking in late at night when I knew no one would be there. The equipment had been repaired, the signal long since forgotten, but I knew how to find it, how to reach out to them. I activated the transmitter, tuning it to the frequency I had discovered months ago. The hum returned, that familiar, eerie vibration that resonated through the building, filling the air with a palpable sense of dread. I began to broadcast, sending out the message that had been implanted in my mind. I spoke of the visitors, of their world, of the knowledge they had shared with me. I spoke of their plans, their intentions, their purpose, and I warned of what was to come. As I spoke, I could feel them listening, their presence growing stronger, more insistent. The pain in my head returned, sharper than before, but I pushed through it, knowing that this was my last chance to be heard. The lights flickered, the power surged, and I knew they were coming for me. But I didn't stop. I couldn't stop. I had to finish the transmission, had to make sure the message got through. And then, just as I was about to complete the broadcast, they arrived. The equipment short-circuited, the lights exploded in a shower of sparks, and the air was filled with that terrible, otherworldly hum. They were there, in the room with me, their forms barely visible in the darkness. I could feel their cold breath on my skin, their presence pressing down on me, suffocating me. The pain in my head was unbearable, a searing, white-hot agony that threatened to tear me apart. But I didn't stop. I couldn't stop. I had to finish. I reached for the transmitter, my vision blurring, my hands trembling. I could hear them in my mind, their voices growing louder, more insistent, demanding that I stop. But I didn't. With the last of my strength, I completed the transmission, sending the final message out into the void. And then, everything went dark. When they found me, I was lying on the floor of the observatory, unconscious but alive. The equipment was destroyed, the building in disarray, but the transmission had gone through. The message had been sent. They tried to keep it quiet, tried to cover up what had happened, but the truth couldn't be contained. The signal had been intercepted by observatories around the world, the message spreading like wildfire through the scientific community. There was no denying it now. They were out there, and they were coming. As for me, I was taken to a facility, a place where they could keep an eye on me, monitor me. They said it was for my own good that I needed help, but I knew the truth. They were afraid of what I had become. The knowledge was still inside me, the memories, the thoughts. I could feel them, lurking in the corners of my mind, waiting for the right moment to emerge. I had been chosen, and I knew that one day they would return. But until then, I would wait, and I would remember. It's been years since that night, years since I first made contact with the visitors. The world has changed, the truth slowly seeping into the public consciousness. But there are still those who refuse to believe, who cling to the old ways, the old fears. But I know better. They've been watching us, studying us, preparing for the day when they will reveal themselves fully. I can feel it in the air, in the subtle shifts in the world around me. The time is coming, the moment when they will return, and the world will finally understand what I have known all along. I can feel them, even now, their presence growing stronger with each passing day. The dreams have returned, more vivid than ever, filled with images of their world, their technology, their plans. And I know that when they come, I will be ready, for I have been chosen. And when they return, I will be waiting.